Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in today with us here at Team Orion. My name is Jordan, and today I'm going to do a little meta tier list following Suda. As we all know, Suda is coming out very soon, and it looks like it will make some impact to our meta, although not a drastic impact, unfortunately, as we saw with Rage of the Abyss. But before I do get started, just want to give a shout out to our sponsors at Gecko Cards. Please make sure you use Orion 5 at checkout if you do want to get yourself any accessories, whether that be binders or sleeves. You can also get yourself some products on there. They are the cheapest on the market, so please do give them a shout. Now, to get into the tier list, as you can see, we've got a couple of things here. We're going to go top meta for what I think are the best meta decks around. Serious threats are decks that are very powerful and under the right hands can be a serious problem. Should be topping events, potentially winning some, but I'd expect top meta to take up most of those spots. Sleeper is here just for those decks that are getting some good support or are already good around that you might not think about straight away, but will be a serious problem if you don't know how to play against them. Rogue, pretty self-explanatory. These are decks that people will play, but you won't really expect to see much of. And pay the bills is honestly, don't waste your time, don't waste your money. Just do something better with the money. Right, okay, so the first one we're going to start with is Argo Stars. Now, Argo Stars are a new archetype releasing in Supreme Darkness. They mainly concern around the continuous traps that can summon themselves as monsters and put themselves back. This is a nice little loop, but unfortunately, it does nothing. Right now, it has no power at all and doesn't really get even anything going forward. We have sort of some first supports from Alliance Insight, but even with that, the deck is not playable as a solo. It's more of a engine for other decks, such as things like Eldritch that can abuse continuous traps. But even then, there are better cards to use in that deck already. So honestly, save your money, save your time. Next up is the new TCG exclusive Mitsugi. Now, this I actually think is a really powerful deck off the go. It can do a lot, as you might have saw with a couple of the Fiendsmith builds already going around. And being able to ritual someone from the deck is crazy powerful, especially since it has multiple board wipes. This is unusual for a TCG exclusive to be this powerful off the get-go. It does remind me a little bit of Burning Abyss. So please keep your eyes out on this, and if you can get a bit of practice time in with it, it will be worth it. Next up is a deck I'm really excited for, Christon. This is another sleeper hit. It's one where it is very powerful from the get-go. If you know what you're doing with the deck, it can be an absolute threat. It's something that you need to learn how to play against. Now, unfortunately for Crystron, it does fall to the same things as Risol and Malice, being Artifact Lancier and Dimensional Barrier. If you don't know how to play under those, you will not be able to play Crystron. Now, thankfully, it does have a lot of playing in your opponent's turn, which means Lancier might not be as impactful the same as Dimensional Barrier, but it is something you do need to be aware of when playing the deck. Okay. Next is Heroes. Heroes are still a Rogue deck. They've gained an Omni Negate, but it's still not enough to make any challenge whatsoever. They'll always be something that people play, they'll always get support, but until they get a lot of legacy support like the types of Ubell got, they will always remain on Rogue. Next is another deck I'm really excited for, and that's White Forest Azamina. The new support is huge. It really makes the deck go from being a good sleeper hit to being an absolute powerhouse. The combos that it can pull off now are insane. They can go into their Omni Negate with Sylvia of the Azamina Sylvia, that is, straight from the get go. If you don't know when to stop them, they will just run over you. So make sure you keep your eyes out on this, and if you do have the time to practice it or learn it, it will be really beneficial for if you are playing it or playing against it. Next is Speedroid. Um, yeah, just play the bells. The best thing about this deck is the new Synchro 12, which is an Omni Negate, but unfortunately it gets outclassed by other existing level 12 Omni Negates like Cosmic Blazar. Although this does have the power to go into the level 10 after it's used its Omni Negate, which is quite powerful. However, it still doesn't do enough on its own. As a deck, Speedroid doesn't change really much. It just gains new access into some higher synchros, but it still doesn't do anything going forward. Next, I'm going to talk about Primite. Primite is a sleeper hit on its own. If this is referring to it as its own thing rather than with things like Blue Eyes, Primite is very powerful. It has a nice consistent engine. However, on its own, it doesn't have enough going forward. Another barrel brings a lot of extra bits to the deck, makes it able to play from the get go with a new normal summon. But unfortunately, that still isn't enough. Now, with that, like I said, please remember about Blue Eyes. That support is insanely good. and Primite Blue Eyes is one of the best decks around when it comes out. Now, I will, as I have just mentioned it, I will talk about the Blue Eyes following support. It is a serious threat. It is very, very powerful. It still has its own issues, but it's so much more consistent than it ever has been. Arguably one of the best decks going around. I don't think we've saw a structure deck this powerful in a very long time. If you don't, yeah, again, if you don't know how to play against it, you will not be able to play against it. Learn it as much as you can. Next up is Tenyi Salto. Tenyi gets some new support, which adds some new cool cards to the archetype. I do love the art of Tenyis, but unfortunately, they just don't do enough in our current meta. Right now, against things like Risol, Malice, and the upcoming Blue Eyes and White Forest, it can't do enough, unfortunately. Although very powerful and does have the same consistent lines of Salto it's always had, it alone doesn't add anything new to the deck, no new dimension. Next is Matter Reactor. Now, I'm going to put these in Rogue, mainly because of the support they get further down the line in Alliance Inside. Right now, I would normally say, just with what you get from Supreme Darkness, it's pay the bills. However, if you have anything about the box breaks and what's in there, they're commons and supers. So it's not exactly something that's going to break the bank when you get it. And going forward, it does have some serious power in it, something that you should consider. Next up is Mermail. Mermail got incredible support in Rage of the Abyss to increase what is already a decent archetype. It's been a fan favourite for a long time, and it has had a lot of wins under its belt from back in 2014. With the new support, we get Poseidon, which gives you a really powerful play going second. It does make the deck a little bit more consistent with a new XYZ7. That means that you don't have to go into your Abyss Gaios and waste the Abyss Gaios early. You can now use it as its actual purpose, being a negate and a nice little board finisher. It is something that will always be worth considering. However, it does have some innate issues. It loses to draw, it loses to shifter. It is a heavy combo deck, so with certain things already existing in the meta, it will have issues, such as Risol and Malice. And one of the next things that I will be mentioning right now, Fiendsmith. Fiendsmith has been a top meta pick for a very long time now. It came out and was immediately powerful back in Infinite Forbidden. Its support in Rage of the Abyss just made it even stronger. The support in Supreme Darkness doesn't actually give anything really that powerful to the deck. They've got a new fusion and they've got a new trap, which unfortunately, due to Lacrima being banned in the TCG, we probably won't ever see this fusion getting played. But that doesn't matter. Fiendsmith is still ridiculously powerful, one of the best decks around. It's the best engine going around. It is used in anything it can be, and I don't think there's a single deck that doesn't want to use Fiendsmith if it can. Next up, Arcana Force, one of the premier new supported archetypes in the set. Don't bother. Quite simply, just don't bother. It is not good enough. It falls to a single hand trap. It has the same issues it's always had. It now does have better plays going into a board thanks to some legacy support it's received. It can lock down a board and create up some nasty floodgates, but it still just doesn't do enough. It's not powerful enough. It never was, and it probably never will be. Coin flip archetypes have just never been something particularly good, and Arcana Force doesn't do anything to change your mind about that. Next, Gladiator Beasts. Gladiator Beasts are a fan favourite archetype. They serve the same purpose they've always have, where they do a lot of shenanigans in the battle phase, very reminiscent of Tempai. But unlike Tempai, doesn't match up in power. And in our particular format, it doesn't do enough. If you do follow OCG results at all, you'll see that it's not made a scratch. It's not something that is worth really playing or learning. However, it is a fan favorite archetype, and yet again, as the breaks have revealed, it's cheap. A lot of low rarity cards. So it's something that you should consider if you want to just have a little fun deck or want to relive the glory days from back in Edison. But even then, it's not really worth playing. Next up is another top meta deck, and my personal favorite deck at the moment, Malice. Malice doesn't really get support in this set, however, it does get a new card in Template Skipper. Now, Template Skipper does add a lot of new options to the deck, but not options people will use. It doesn't really change the way you play. I don't think there's any worth in playing it. I don't play Code of Soul myself anymore, so I don't know why I'll play a worse version of that. Malice is still doing the same things it's always done, whether that be the Fiendsmith variant, the Kashtira variant, pure, or with Striker, it's going to try and set up some really powerful link boards with very layered interaction. So it's one of those decks that you probably will be aware of how to play with and against by now, given that it's been out for a little bit of time. But it only seems to get stronger and stronger. And going down further down the line, back, like I said, into Alliance Insight, things do look like they're going to have a drastic change for the deck. But right now, it's just really powerful. Risol, the best deck of the format. There is no doubt about that. I'm not a fan of the deck. I don't think it's that fun to play personally, but I can't deny how powerful it is. Being able to set up a detonator, which is multiple pops in per chain, it's not once per chain, it's not once per turn in any way. Being able to send an aggregator going second with Sword to be able to put a negate on board immediately. Being able to just constantly link Xyz summon with the bodies that just keep bringing themselves out. Multiple starters and extenders. Now, with Suda, they do get like Malice, a card that supports them but not being direct support. However, unlike Malice, Twins of the Eclipse, which is the card that they get, is incredible. Being able to give them additional ways to Xyz summon by using rank 4s to make a new rank 4. You probably already saw a lot of this already if you do any testing for further formats, where Twins of the Eclipse will make them able to make another detonator in the turn after they've wasted all the materials. It's something that you really need to learn to play against if you want to be a meta player or play. And even then, you need to know the ins and outs of the deck. Thankfully, it is quite simple. It's not particularly difficult to play, and it's something that you will be aware of going forward, as I don't see this moving from the top meta for quite a while. Now, the next deck I'm going to talk about is one that I thought would be dead after the ban list. Tempai. I honestly didn't expect to see people innovate with it as they have done. It has turned out to be an absolute powerhouse still. That small engine being able to OTK through near enough anything is insane. If you have saw any lists from recently, you'll see that people are playing it with things like Fiend, Smith, and Kashtira cards, whereas they're taking out a couple of hand traps to put in this small engine that just runs over anything after they've controlled the board for a couple of turns. It's a deck I've not enjoyed since it came out, but it's something I'm very aware of and very scared of. Because, as I said, if you don't have the way to stop them, you are losing the game on a normal summon of Hydra. Now, next is another deck that got hit off the ban list, and that is Ubell. Ubell is ridiculous still. I'll honestly say, it actually got a buff from the ban list. Getting Spirit Gates at 3 rather than 1 and having only 1 Phantom gives them more plays than ever, more starters. This deck is not going anywhere. It does lose to Droll, it does lose to Shifter, but that's about it. Other hand traps do not hurt them anywhere near enough. And unless you are playing board breaker builds, which you'll see people playing a lot more of now thanks to Risol, they aren't going to struggle. There's very few decks that can stop a Ubell player once they've really started going. And if you have had the unfortunateness to play against it, you'll know that yourself. It keeps going, it keeps summoning. It's not something that worries about Nibiru. It doesn't care about hand traps other than Droll and Shifter. So as long as you're aware of that, then you should be able to side against them. But otherwise, it is a deck that probably will run over you if you don't have any way to stop them. Next is a fan favorite deck, and a deck that is favorite to the hearts of everyone in Team Orion, thanks to Drew, our leader. Branded. Branded is unfortunately a rogue deck now. The ban list didn't change really much for Branded. It's more of just general power creep. They don't get any new support in Supreme Darkness, really, but it is a deck that is so near and dear to our hearts that we have to mention it. They still can lock you out of the game with things like Ido, thanks to the Sanctify, I think it's called. Yeah, Albion the Sanctify Dragon. However, the plays haven't changed, but the rest of the meta has. Risol and Malice just steamroll the deck, and so do Fiend Smith variants of both the decks and solo as well. The common meta threats around do cause issues, such as Dimensional Barrier, which is pretty much in everybody's deck now, although things like Artifact Lancia don't hurt them really in any way. So it's something that can still play under the current main meta problems, but doesn't have much say other than that. Next up is Labyrinth. Labyrinth is still a sleeper hit deck, and has been for a while and probably will be for a lot longer. Every time there's a new trap card released, it's something that they can probably abuse if it is worth abusing. Now, as I was saying with Branded and a couple of other decks mentioned already, they don't get particular new support in the deck in this set, but it's such a potent deck, you need to be aware of how to play against it. Quite often you'll find yourself, if you're going second, whether you're on Risol or Malice, you probably are going to struggle, if not lose. Dharma Cannon and Dimensional Barrier are still ridiculously good cards against the decks, and they main deck both of them at multiples. Now, I just want to circle back to Christron, because I do feel like this is one that people will consider more up here in the coming formats as a serious threat. But like I was saying earlier, it does fall to Dimensional Barrier and Lancia, which are common here due to Risol and Malice, but it is something you really need to look into. It can steamroll you. It can put up incredibly powerful boards for what they are. So please do pay attention to it. And that is all I wanted to discuss with you following Supreme Darkness. If there's any decks that we missed or that you thought we should discuss, please let us know in the comments below and we can look to respond to that. But these are the main things I thought that was worth mentioning coming up. Now, as I said earlier, please remember to give us a like, follow, and subscribe, and make sure you look into Gecko cards using Orion 5 as a code, getting yourself a nice 5% discount. They are the best in the market, and they are worth looking into. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a nice rest of the day. Bye.